Hey everybody, how's it going? This is a little Deathwing video, and this video is a Deathwing army list I made up, pretty much the one I'm trying to make for this Deathwing Pre-Heresy Army. Um, it's a 1750 point list because that tends to be the standard around here locally for me for tournaments, and so when I have a list that's for that, are able to do that. Now, recently the tournaments have been kind of flip-flopping between 1500 and 1750 from my understanding, so I don't really know what's going on anymore. But 1750 list. If I need to make a 1500 point list, I will make a new one from scratch. I'm not going to trim this one down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what the list consists of, kind of how I plan to use each thing in the list, and then well, not pretty much how I plan to use it, their purpose, why they're there. And then I'm going to pose a question in the community and give you some my tactics and how I plan to use them. So, let's jump right to it. HQ is a Belial, of course. To make a Deathwing army, you need Belial. He's going to be fielded power weapon, mastercrafted power weapon, and Stormbolter, I should say. Then we got Deathwing squad with Cyclone Missile Launcher, which is going to be this squad right here. The Cyclone Missile Launcher is on a Twin Lightning Claw guy. Then we're going to have two other Deathwing squads, each with Assault Cannon and Chain Fist. Now, I know the Assault Cannon is kind of not Pre-Heresy. Towards the end of the Great Crusade, rotary cannon started coming out, essentially Assault Cannon type stuff. I got that info from the Thousand Sons novel that came out recently. It describes some of the Terminators of the Thousand Sons having these rotary type of cannons, so Assault Cannon. I kind of prefer autocannons, and if I had the option to take like a twin-length autocannon or something like that in place of the assault cannon, I would, but I don't have that option. I have a fourth Deathwing squad. It's just Sky Squad. It's got 4 Thunderhammer Storm Shields and 1 Heavy Flamer in it with Power Fist. I'm not a big fan of Assault Terminator squads that much in a Deathwing list, but here it is, and I have a reason for that. And then I have 2 Dreadnoughts, each with extra armor, each venerable, each with twin glass cannon and heavy flamer. The venerable rule, I think, is a good rule, and that's why I took it, even though, Great Crusade era, probably not that many really ancient dreadnoughts, but it doesn't have to represent just age, in my opinion. Anyway, rounding out the list is a Land Raider with extra armor. No Crusaders at this time period, so it's basic Land Raider. So that's the list. To explain how everything works, Belial's going to be attached to probably one of the assault cannon squads because everything shoots 24 inches. The Cyclone Missile Launcher squad is going to take some early pot shots at some light vehicles, some dedicated transport, that type of thing. The assaulting squad is going to be in the Land Raider. Basically, that whole idea is to safely advance, meaning not overextend itself, but advance right on top of the enemy, hitting their bad boy unit, hitting their big horde type of unit. So if it's like a big 30 plus squad or even 20 plus squad, run that thing up there, hopefully thinning it down a little bit with some shooting anyway before the assaulting happens. Then have them jump out of the Land Raider, fire the heavy flamer into the thick of the squad, and then charge the remains, which should hopefully work decently well. So that's that plan. The Dreadnoughts are there to kind of take some of the heat off the Land Raider. Land Raiders draw a lot of firepower against them because, they're big, scary vehicles. Pretty hard to kill, so your opponent's going to shoot a lot at it. Dreadnoughts tend to draw some fire themselves, so I'm hoping having 2 Dreadnoughts on a Land Raider will kind of make the enemy split their heavier firepower between those 3, which means less chance of them really destroying one a phase. Hopefully, that's the theory anyway. And also taking some heat off the Deathwing in total as well, because Terminators will also draw firepower. Plus, they have twin glass cannons each. That gives me a total of 4 glass cannons in the entire army. 2 from the Land Raider, and then 1 each for the Dreadnought. One thing that Deathwing armies lack is good anti-tank shooting for heavy vehicles. They have the Cyclone Missile Launcher, but that's about it. So hopefully having these last cannons will help even the odds a bit. That's what I like to do anyway. Plus, they're dreadnoughts, so if they get in close, they can rip into like some vehicles and generally cause problems. So that's everything. Now, the list I told you is only 1720. I have 30 points left to play with, and I'm torn between one or two options that I've narrowed down to. I can either include a standard bearer in the squad, or I can include apothecary in the squad. Now, I know whatever squad I include it with, that's the only squad that can have the all opposite added to it in a later date. I know that, but it really depends on which squad I want this to work with. So if I include the standard bearer, it's going to go right to the assault squad, just extra attacks. So they're going to be the squad is going to be most regularly benefiting from the extra attack characteristic. So they would get the standard bearer. If I decide to include an apothecary instead, it would go to one of the shooting squads. The reason for that is this Northern Reductor works like the old way, so it cannot be locked in close combat or pinned or falling back in order to be used. So the other three squads will hopefully not get locked in close combat, and I can utilize one of the other two squads to essentially block close combat from the apothecary squad. Why include an apothecary? Well, it allows me once per turn essentially to ignore a failed save of any type except instant death weaponry or close combat attacks that ignore armor. So this is great for two reasons. A, it works within 6 inches of the apothecary, so as long as I keep the squads relatively close by, it can work on other squads. And B, I make my Terminator armor saves decently enough, and statistically you should be making those saves very easily. But there are those weapons out there, melta guns, multi-meltas, plasma guns, and their equivalents, that will just pretty much almost guarantee that you fail an armor save because they eat through your armor. Now the Terminators do have a 5+ invuln save, but the chances of making that are relatively low. So if I get shot at by a squad that includes a plasma gun, for example, and I make all the saves except the plasma gun, I can ignore that failed save and keep the longevity of my squads going. Basically keeping more Deathwing around, and being a small army, keeping Deathwing around is good. So that's why I'm torn between standard bearer or apothecary. So if anybody has any insight onto which they feel is better, I feel they're about the same personally, which is why I don't know what I want to do. The standard bearer is only going to be put in the assaulting squad, that's it. The apothecary will go into one of the shooting squads. That's just what I'm going to do. But so I don't really know what to do in terms of that thing. And that's all I'm going to do with the 30 points left over. The apothecary's 30 and the standard bearer is 25. So I guess I could throw a stone bolter on the Land Raider if I go the standard bearer route. But that's about it. So any insight into that would be helpful. And lastly, some tactica, if you will, about what I plan to do with this army. I plan to make it mobile. I plan for the entire army to move. Not quite like an air army because I don't have that type of speed, but to constantly moving. Because everything can move and shoot, which is great. So that's my plan. Reason being, a static Deathwing army tends to quickly get, not overwhelmed, but the enemy can quickly bring weapons to bear that may have been out of range. But constantly moving, baiting them in, drawing them back, going forward and back, just moving around will help keep the enemy's heavier weapons that may have been out of range, keep them out of range longer, or out of the field of fire longer. But I plan for the army to essentially move as one, with like the Land Raider being like the anchor. I plan the Dreadnoughts off to either flank, one on each flank, or depending on where I'm going, or both off to one flank, depending on where it goes. So if I'm heading down the enemy's right flank, then they'll be on the left of the Land Raider. Well, I should say, if I'm heading down the right flank, my right flank. So I guess technically the enemy's left flank if you go around the board. But so if I'm heading down from my deployment zone, the right side, then I'm going to have the Dreadnoughts on the left. If I'm heading down on the left side, from my point of view, the Dreadnoughts will be on the right. If I'm heading in the middle, wherever I think they're needed best. I generally wouldn't head down the middle, but sometimes you gotta. And then the Deathwing squads on foot would probably walk next to the Land Raider, letting their firepower. As far as deep striking goes, it really depends on the army I'm facing, whether or not I put anybody in reserve. I don't have any teleport homers to really home in on, but you don't really need that. It just makes it a little bit safer. But generally, one reason I wouldn't do that, I would put maybe one squad, because that one squad can come in automatically, is because I don't want to be waiting all game for something to come in from reserves. And that happens easily with me because I'm terrible at rolling when I need to roll the reserve rolls. But basically a shooting type of list with one heavy hitting hard punch with the Thunderhammer Storm Shield squad and the Heavy Flamer. Basically moving together with the Land Raider. The Land Raider may do a little burst of speed here and there, going full 12 inches, maybe in the first movement phase, or maybe right before I deploy the guys to the assault squad to assault. But basically moving together and picking things off, essentially hitting an enemy and just picking it apart and constantly moving. That's the key. Always moving. Not just forward either. Moving horizontally, moving, that's not a good word, moving parallel with your deployment zones, moving left to right, up and down, retreat, quote unquote retreating, moving forward towards the enemy and then moving away from the enemy, kind of goading them to come out more, and leading them around, because I can always shoot. Everything's relentless, infantry-wise. Dreadnoughts can move and shoot. Land Raider can move 6 inches and fire something. So I can kind of goad them and pull them out a little bit by moving back towards my deployment zone, and thus thin them out a bit more before letting them get too close. So that's my plan. I've done stuff similar to that, but on a much smaller scale with some of my post-heresy. I have enough post-heresy Terminators to field a very small Terminator force with Belial. So that's what I've done in the past. So that's a little bit of early Tactica, at least my early Tactica, without actually having the list built and ready to play. But with my experience with Deathwing, with Dark Angels, and playing this type of stuff, that's why I built this army list the way it is. You can always leave comments and criticisms. I'm probably not going to change too much. I've been working on this for a while, but I do not know about that Standard Bearer or Apothecary. I don't know which one will be more beneficial to have. I do want to add one or the other because I think aside from being beneficial in game terms, I think it'll make the army look a little bit cooler too, having a cool Standard Bearer or having like a converted Apothecary. So that's pretty much it. Leave any questions or comments in the comment section, or feel free to PM me. And this is my 1750 list for Pre-Heresy Deathwing. Until next time, take it easy.